And we can have expectations in relationships, and it's important to do so to some degree. But in order to get each other there, it requires a great deal of acceptance of where our partner is at this time. Okay, guys, well, perfect timing to do our meditation. So if everyone is ready, feel free to mute your phones if you like so you are not disturbed. Feel free to close your eyes if you like. Although in true meditation, as we like to say, this is not necessary. Because in true meditation, there is no prerequisite in order to meditate. And this becomes clear as we become clear that meditation isn't something that's a state that's cultivated or created, but rather the cessation of creating or efforting or trying. Meditation is more akin to a prolonged noticing of what is already here, already happening. But what happens is, as we begin to simply notice, we may begin to feel a difference that we call meditation, the state of meditation. And because our conscious mind only knows about change that happens through effort, it is most familiar with change that happens through effort. It looks back and assumes, I did that through some action. But true meditation, when our eyes are closed, or becoming centered when our eyes are open, is a simple product of prolonged noticing what is already here, what is already happening. You could say there can be a great deal of benefit from being with what is already here, getting more familiar with what is already here, rather than more quickly ushering things along. we could say, we could draw a line of similarity between meditation and success as a couple. Rather than trying to more quickly usher along some part of the relationship. Perhaps there's a way in which what we're really looking for is to get more familiar with what is already here, to get more familiar with our partner's perspective, with the perspective of another individual. Just as with the analogy of the wall, the clear wall in between two people, if we don't get intimate with the perspective of another, what are we living in other than an entirely one-sided, self-created experience of them? Even though we may have little gems, as we see it, that we've accumulated along the way that substantiates our one-sided perspective of them. And in most cases, is not enough to truly understand them, but just enough to bind us even more in our one-sided perspective of them. So rather than just these little tidbits that we've collected from them along the way, what we're really talking about is reading their whole novel. Not just a chapter, but becoming so intimate with that book that we feel and can feel like we're embodying that life, their life. If we don't feel like we've taken the time to embody that life, then truly we're just living our one-sided ideas of them based on our unique life experiences, based on the little tidbits of information we've collected from them that in most cases further substantiate our own one-sided ideas about them rather than truly helping us to feel like we can embody what it's like to be them. What kind of information would we have to obtain to feel like we have embodied their perspective? Now let's clarify, embody doesn't mean take on as our own necessarily. Embody means to understand. To understand. And now, understand doesn't mean the little snippet that you've captured from them along the way that continues to fortify your one-sided experience of them. But rather, understanding means you feel like you have embodied their perspective. You can move in it as if it were your own. You can make compassionate suggestions. And then move out of their perspective and re-embody your own without any loss to your own perspective. Don't be lazy. Don't think you understand someone until you've taken the time to truly feel what it is like to embody their perspective. And you know you've done this when you can freely move in this perspective and even make compassionate suggestions based on their values, their priorities, their goals. And we have to be careful to keep our goals and values and priorities separate when doing this, because at times they may seem to come in direct opposition. But that is only a temporary occurrence in most cases. because one person has a perspective that's a certain way in the present does not mean that it will be that way forever. And the more able you are to enter their perspective and embody it as your own, and as such make compassionate suggestions based on their values and goals and priorities, then the more apt you'll be able to influence that perspective that is as such in the present. So even though someone's perspective may look in opposition to yours in the present, in most cases, it will not stay that way moving forward. This should be all that's needed to give yourself permission to really understand. So, ask yourself a final contemplative question. What is it that I most need to know moving forward? What would be most helpful to know moving forward? And take a moment for your mind to either think that through or simply receive the answer. What would be most helpful moving forward? if you feel you've sufficiently concluded whatever your takeaway is, whatever you most need to know, then at that point, and that point only, begin to slowly bring this noticing quality, you could say, back to more directly noticing the body, feelings, thoughts, the world, each other, the conversation, as we slowly begin to take in a deep breath, and when you're ready, open your eyes.